Well, part of the problem with the way history is discussed these days is that people don't do their research with books.
Yes.
Now, books are important as a source of reliable historical evidence because there are rules about how they get made. A history book has to be based on research in archives, ideally, as well as in other books. It needs to pass through certain stages of editing, and then it has to be reviewed. And if it passes that test and survives and is in a library, then it's probably a reasonably reliable source. Not the only source you should rely on, but if it's there on the shelves of a major university library, then it's likely a fairly reliable source. Unfortunately, with the passage of time, the evidence that you find on an internet search, suppose you go to Google, or if you ask ChatGPT an historical question, is much less reliable. That's partly because more and more of the answers to historical questions are being generated by artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence can make very plausible summaries of historical events. Its plausibility is highly impressive. It sounds like somebody writing an essay very, very fast, but it's not reliable. That's partly because of hallucinations. AI will just make stuff up that sounds just as plausible as the stuff that's real. But it's also because there isn't any of that process of filtering that real historical research produces. So my advice to anybody who wants to research a topic, let's take the role of Churchill in World War II, is do not go near the internet. Under no circumstances pose the question to any AI large language model. Go to a library or go to Amazon and purchase one of the really good biographies that exist. Andrew Roberts's most recent, very impressive biography of Churchill, single volume, eminently readable. Start there. And when you read what Andrew Roberts says about Churchill's life, and you think, gosh, is that right? There's something called a footnote. You go to the back of the book, there's the source, and you can then see if Andrew Roberts is making it up or basing his judgment on a historical document or some other published source. That's how it works. There are no shortcuts. It takes a long time to write a book like Roberts's Churchill. History books are hard. There's no way of shortcutting it because you have to do your due diligence. Otherwise, it won't make it as a book. So I think the great mistake that many people today make is thinking there's a shortcut. I'll just ask ChatGPT and then I'll know. That is exactly how not to do it.
What? We have to do the work?
I'm afraid so. The bad news is history is not for geniuses like astrophysics. History is for people with an unreasonable appetite for reading. You have to read an awful lot of stuff, documents, old books, before you can write anything yourself. In an ideal world, any history book would have a ratio published on the front cover, the ratio of pages read to pages written, or words read to words written. And you wouldn't touch a book that had a ratio close to unity. Such books exist, by the way, books that are based on such a small amount of research that they essentially are based on as many words as they consist of themselves. Really good books will have a ratio of 100 to 1 or 1,000 to 1. Well, we don't know that because it's not explicitly published. But it's true that most books represent the distillation, most good books, the distillation of vast numbers of other books. And that's why being a historian is a deeply boring activity that most people would hate.